boys and girls, and welcome to our last day of Vacation Bible School, our last day of ZoomCATION Bible School. I am so glad you are here. I just wanted to share a Bible story with you and do some crafts and remind you of how much God loves you. Now, this is one of my favorite things. It's called a slinky, and it kind of slinks here and there. But one of the things that I love is that this one is shaped like a heart. It actually makes me think of the word love, just like my shirt. Now, the thing I like about this is, look, it stretches out. So you think it's only going to be this size, but it turns out it keeps stretching and stretching and stretching. That reminds me a lot of today's Bible story. It's a story about thinking that there was only this much, and God, in God's wisdom, in God's love, in God's care, stretched out what was given and absolutely grew that love. So that's today's story. Are you ready for it? Let's hear it together. It comes from my favorite Bible, the Jesus Story Bible. It's one of my favorites. It's really good for kids of all ages. Let's read it together. Today I'm going to share one of my favorite stories that comes out of Matthew 14, Mark 6, and Luke 9. There once was 5,000 tired and hungry and probably grumpy people sitting on a hillside waiting for their dinner. They'd come to hear Jesus that day. They came before breakfast, stayed all morning, all afternoon, and way past dinner. No one had meant to be out there that long. But that's how it was, listening to Jesus as if time didn't exist. People could listen to Jesus for hours, and on this particular day, that's exactly what they did. Don't they look grumpy? Let's see what Jesus is up to. But they hadn't brought enough food, and they couldn't just go buy themselves a burger and fries because, of course, they were in the middle of nowhere with no shops or restaurants besides. That kind of food wasn't invented yet. What could they do? What would they do? Jesus' friends had an idea. Let's send everyone home for dinner. So there's a bunch of people, and they all look hungry. I see a little food, though. I wonder what Jesus is going to do with that. Let's see. Well, they don't have to go, Jesus said. You can give them something to eat. Did Jesus want them to travel all the way to town and buy food for everyone? Jesus' friends panicked. We don't have enough money. What food do you have, Jesus said. Go and see. Now there was a little boy in the crowd, and he'd brought a lunch that his mother had made for him that morning. He looked at his 5 little loaves and his 2 fish. It wasn't much, not enough for 5,000 people, but it was all he had. I have some, he said. Jesus' friends laughed when they saw his little lunch. That's not nearly enough, they said. But they were wrong. Jesus knew it didn't matter how much the little boy had. God would make it enough, more than enough. Jesus said, bring me what you have. So the little boy gave Jesus his lunch. And Jesus winked at the little boy and whispered in his ear, watch. How in the world will Jesus feed everyone with just that? Jesus' friends said, because they thought it was impossible. But Jesus knew the one who'd made the fish in the oceans. And Jesus knew the one in the very beginning who'd made everything out of nothing. How hard would something like this be for someone like that? So we see Jesus and the little boy, and we see what he's holding up, the fish and the loaves. We see all the people who are hungry for dinner. Doesn't it look like Jesus is taking a selfie? But really what he's doing is lifting up what the little boy had and offering it to God and thanking God for the blessing of the little boy's lunch. Another story. Jesus took the little boy's lunch, looked up to heaven, and thanked his Father. Then Jesus gave the lunch back to his friends. And Jesus' friends started to hand out the food. Do you know what happened? It was the strangest thing. No matter how much they broke off, there was always enough. There was always more and more and more. Enough for 5,000. Everyone had as much as they wanted, seconds and thirds and fourths, until they were full, and there was even leftovers. Oh, everybody looks happy, and look at all that bread. There's leftovers. Even the birds look like they're getting some. Well, Jesus did many miracles like this. Things people thought couldn't happen, that weren't natural, but it was the most natural thing in all the world. It was what God had been doing from the beginning, of course. Taking the nothing and making everything. Taking the emptiness and filling it up. Taking the darkness and making it light. So God took this little boy's lunch and gave it and made enough food for everybody. Sometimes what we think we have to offer is very small and isn't enough. Maybe what we think we have to offer is a hug or an act of kindness or some words. I'm sorry, I love you. And they don't feel like they're enough. Or we have a little bit to share, a piece of candy, a toy, a handshake. But what we have, God will use. No matter how small it feels, God can always use what we offer. God will always make what we have to bring and share enough. Oh, friends, isn't this a fun story? I wonder what small things you have to give that God could use today. Let us all share what we have, knowing that God will use us to be a blessing, just as God blesses us and loves everyone. Well, wasn't that a nice story? I really like that story a lot. So, thinking about how do we share what we have? How do we love out? What does that look like? How do we do that? Well, one of the ways we do that is by remembering how to be kind, remembering how to love one another, remembering how to help around the house, say kind words, do things for friends and neighbors, actually filling in our bingo. Remember our bingo? Where did that go? Oh, here it is. Here's our bingo sheet. Every time we do something on here, we're sharing what we have. We're sharing our hands, we're sharing our hearts, we're sharing our feet, we're sharing God's good love. That's great, isn't it? So, I thought a fun craft today would be to make a heart pillow so that when we think about doing something kind, or if we're praying for a friend, we could hug our pillow and, well, remember to share the things that we have, especially our love. So you'll find, or you received, 2 pieces of cloth that are tied together. Now, you probably have a hole where a couple of them haven't been tied together. Now, you might need some help from a grown-up, but I'm pretty sure you can do this. So, we make sure our ties are laid out that have never been tied before, okay? And then we open our bag of stuffing, and we take a handful, not a big handful, and we put it right into the hole, okay? So just like that, in it goes. Here's another one. So just about the same size as a snowflake or a snowball, right? And you're gonna put them in on one side Then you're gonna put it in on the other side, and you just keep going. Little handfuls. In on one side, push it down. In on the other side, push it down. I think you're getting the hang of it, aren't you? Take a handful, push it in. Take another handful, push it in, right? And if you need a little help, you can pat it down a little bit. You can pat it down, no trouble. And you can just keep going. Yep. In it goes. In it goes. Great. Okay, so I think we need a little bit more. You might end up having a little extra stuffing. That's not a bad thing, okay? So once you get in your last group of stuffing, you're gonna wanna take your ties, get 2 ties, pull them up together, and then bring the one that's closest to you around the bottom and pull it together. Ta-da! Then go to the next one. Find your 2 ties that have not been tied, hold them up high, put the one in front of the other, the one that's closest to you folds down, comes through the hole, and then you pull both the ends. What? Look at your tying. Get the next 2, pull them up high, cross them over, pull them together. What? There we go. Let's do another one. Pull them up tight, pull them up high, cross them over, tuck it under, pull it together. Okay. Then we do the same thing one more time. Okay. Now, if at any point you feel like you can see some of the white in the middle, you want to go back around and do another tie, okay? So you want to keep tying them together. And they should ultimately, oh, my top is coming off. All of the top parts are coming apart. There's a couple more I need to tie back around. So some of them might need a double tie. That's okay. Absolutely, that's okay. They just need to be tight so none of the stuffing comes out. And that's okay. Just keep going. And there, here, let me get a couple more of these on the top. Get them tight, right? You might need a grown-up's help. It's okay if you do. Absolutely. I think I might have got this guy a little overstuffed. Ooh, I'm gonna take a little bit out. That'll work a little bit better. Then I can puff it up. Okay, so I'm just gonna keep on tying. Keep on tying. Double tie where you need to. It's okay. Yep. Get it all together. Just keep tying them together. And next thing you know, so this is the green one that I've been working on. It needs a little bit more love, a little bit more work, but it is definitely coming together, which is really good. Okay, almost done here. I'm going to show you the blue one because the green one needs a little bit more work, but you can see it's becoming the shape of a heart. And if you hold it and hug it, it'll help you remember to share what's in your heart, to share the love that you have. Here's the blue one. It needs a little bit more tucking and a little more tying too. Be patient. Sometimes sharing our love, sometimes working on sharing love takes some time. That's okay.
Now you might have noticed that in your bag, you also got a hand. This is so you can give yourself a high five every time you remember to share what you have. High five. Every time you think what I have is too small and God makes it enough, high five. Remember, there's always chances to love. There's always chances to share what we have. That's how God lives and shares with us, and that's how we give back as well. High five. Now, if we had done Vacation Bible School instead of Zoom Vacation Bible School, we would have had a fire pit, and we would have had one of our favorite desserts, one of our favorite snacks. I bet you guessed what it is. That's right. Chocolate, marshmallows, graham crackers. Put them together, 2 crackers, 1 piece of chocolate, 1 marshmallow. You can fire them over a candle and with some, or over a fire pit with a grown-up's help, or who needs to cook them? Eat them raw. So yummy. Here's a little snack that I have that's always fun to share. I'm always glad to share it with my friends. This is for you, friends. Remember to share your love. Remember to share what you have. Remember how much God loves you. Thanks so much for being a part of ZoomCATION Bible School. We loved having you. Hope you had some fun and hope you felt the love.